Hello, everyone. Welcome to our special Zoom Q&A session with the pre-med student from Johns Hopkins University. We're thrilled to have you all here today. My name is Anya.
And I'm Michelle.
And we are your hosts for this session. Whether you're just starting to explore a career in medicine or you're already committed to this path, or you just have any questions for colleges in general, today's session is a fantastic opportunity to gain insight and tips from someone who's living a pre-med experience. We have Grace Lin joining us today, who will share her journey to answer your questions and offer valuable advice.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, also just feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll get to them. Thank you.
So Grace, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace Lin. I'm a rising junior at Johns Hopkins University. I study cognitive sciences, and I'm a pre-med student that's currently involved in all kinds of activities on campus. I do a bit of research, volunteering, and dance. So needless to say, I have a bit of experience with everything. So if you have any questions regarding college or university specific, or even just the journey of application, I'm free and glad to answer them.
Thank you. So now we'll start off with a little icebreaker activity so we can get everyone engaged.
Yeah, so just type one word in the chat that describes how you're feeling about college right now, and whether that's excited, nervous, curious, or anything like that. Just
let us know. And if you guys are seniors and you want to share just how your college application process is going, then please do that as well. And then we'll also share our thoughts after. I see there's a lot of psychology and UCI.
one engineering in there.
Biology. Okay.
So let's just start with the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So what made you want to pursue a pre-med pathway?
I would say that since I was young and since in high school, I've always been interested in medicine, specifically just learning more about human anatomy and then physiology. And through that, I kind of just geared towards more learning about how to help people because that was something I was also interested in high school. And since getting to college, I realized that there are just so many opportunities that you can go through. You can become all kinds of doctors there, like therapeutic doctors, the ones that handle more medicine, chemicals, or the ones that are more surgery related. I chose to study cognitive sciences, which is more related to the brain sciences. I saw the people that were mentioning psychology. Cognitive sciences is a byproduct of psychology and neuroscience, as well as neurophysiological studies, where it's a little bit of everything and then it all comes together as cognitive sciences. And I'm hoping to take that into a psychiatrist field with forensic studies in there. And I think that would be mainly why I chose to pursue it. One, because career stability, and also it's an interest that I have had since I was young, and I just want to pursue it as a study.
Wow, okay, thanks for sharing. Okay, so our second question is, what does a typical day look like for a pre-med student?
Typical day. Okay, so since I'm just going to give some context, since I am a rising junior in Hopkins, my classes have certainly gone from less intensive. I would like to say that the intro classes are a lot more difficult, but as you progress, they slightly get easier and more geared towards what you do actually want to study. So I'm taking a lot more neuro-based classes, psychology classes. I'm also having a minor in psychology. So I'm taking more of those focal areas. As of now, I would say my daily schedule will pretty much be waking up early, and then I'll go study at the library for a couple of hours and I attend my classes. And then after that, I'll engage in some of my extracurriculars. I'm involved in one of the service fraternities on campus. It's called Alpha Phi Omega. Pretty much we go all around the city of Baltimore and we volunteer at hospitals, homeless shelters, food packaging. So I would dedicate a couple of hours each week, each day to engage in that. And then just to take care of my own mental health, I would do dance practice later on in the day, and then I'll hang out with some friends, and then I'll end the day with just a little bit more studying, and then I'll go to bed. That's pretty much my average day.
Okay, so that kind of also answered our third question, which was how do you balance studying with other activities? So we'll just move on to our fourth question, which is
what are the most challenging courses you've taken so far?
Okay. Hmm. I would say this is very specific from college to college, but I would have to say either organic chemistry 1 and 2, and one of my specific neuroscience classes, which is called cells and systems, where pretty much it takes neuroscience to a molecular level, where you're looking at all the synapses and then specific chemicals and what they produce in the brain. And pretty much in that class, our professor, he invented the class. So he gave us like textbooks and pages each day to read. And we would have to go in there and memorize literally everything and see how it connects. And then the exams were just like insane. This man, it was his pride and joy of the course. And we had to like deal with that the entire semester. So I would say that would definitely be one of the most challenging ones. Organic chemistry itself, the content is definitely very interesting to learn about because my professor, he was very passionate about it. And he took it into polymers and then making plastics that were more sustainable for the earth. So you could really feel the passion every time he taught. But apart from that, it was a lot of memorization and you have to understand which chemicals do what and then to make sure you don't like make some kind of biohazard. Otherwise, it was a very interesting class. I enjoyed it. However, I would not take it again.
Okay,
Wow,
well,
that's scary.
yeah. Chemistry.
Not so scary. This is like sophomore, junior year level. You're okay freshman year. If you take a freshman year, I don't recommend that. Don't do it.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, so how would you say you handle the stress of your coursework?
I would say definitely when it comes to coursework, I studied with friends a lot. Because if you try and study by yourself, not only would you feel like you'll come to a stump and then you understand exactly what's going on, or you just get confused and overwhelmed. If you have someone to study with you, then it's easier to kind of like ask questions, or you can kind of like stress out together and then you realize like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one struggling right now. And then once you have someone else who is like helping you out and then also being there with you in that same class, it becomes easier. You have someone to go along with the journey. And then other than that, I try to like schedule my time. So I split up the studying. I try not to do too many like study blocks. I'll do a little bit in the morning, a little in the afternoon whenever I get the time, just to like keep it consistent all throughout the day. If I do it all in like one sitting, I might get overwhelmed or it will just be too much for the moments. So I like to break it up, take lots of breaks, and then have a study buddy. That's pretty much how I study my courses.
Wow, okay, that's
Yeah,
smart.
it's smart.
So our sixth question is what resources are available for academic support at your school
Yeah.
at Johns Hopkins?
There are there are quite an abundance of resources at Hopkins. Some of my favorites are easily like we have this program where it's called Pilot, where pretty much you can have like a student mentor and then they kind of tutor for course specific things. So for example, like organic chemistry, calculus, I was in pilots for each of those, where one day out of the week, they would have like a study set to go over the content that was learned that week. You would go through all kinds of questions and then just really reinforce the material to make sure that when you go into classes the week after, you're not lost, you're kind of like on track and everything's fine. Some others, we have like academic advisors where they kind of link you to more student-led groups where you can have like a personal tutor or you can get practice questions or just like more intense group studying. Another resource that I use personally, like I used it every single semester, no fail, office hours. I would camp out in my professor's office hours every time, ask them questions about any homework or just any concept that I was not sure of and they would explain it. It was much easier to kind of understand that way because it was like one to one, where rather in lecture halls, this is something that's very different from like high school and university. The lecture halls can contain up to like 300 people, and it's a lot. So if you want to have like a one-on-one connection with someone and then try and like ask them, it's really hard in lecture because unlike high school where you could just raise your hand, that doesn't apply to college because if everyone raised their hands, then there would be no learning getting done. So I would go to office hours and then ask the professor personally, and that would be how I would get the info that I needed to succeed in the course.
So how would you, so you already kind of touched on this before, but were there a lot of research and clinical opportunities?
Yes. If you're speaking about like Hopkins specifically, there are a lot of like clinical opportunities that you can go for. Like right next to my school, there is a hospital right there that a bunch of students go there afterwards to do volunteering, or they do a little like clinical researching, shadowing, internships all there. I have a couple of friends that stayed this summer to do internships there. And then other than that, There are hospitals all around the area that people go to for volunteering. And if you're in the same organizations that I am, it makes it easier to navigate where all the resources are just in one area. And then you can go through a list and pick the ones that are more suited for you. Or you can talk to professors, and then a lot of them tend to have their own research going on. So if you're close to the professor and then you talk to them quite a bit, they can let you into their labs, and then you can have like research opportunities for the rest of your years. And it's honestly such a valuable experience because not only are you getting the repertoire that you need for when you graduate, but you're also like building connections with your lab mates, and then you're also learning more about subjects that you are more interested in.
I see. Okay, so question number 9 is how do you prepare for exams in your pre-med pathway?
Mm, okay. I would say that I was kind of really bad at it at the beginning because I would procrastinate quite a bit, and then it would be like 2 nights before I'm suddenly like cramming through all the content. But I've improved, I've learned better. So what I do now is I give it like a solid week or two before the exam, or like strategy that I really like, all my friends do this. We have like just get a huge calendar and then mark all the exam dates so that you can see it visually when an exam or midterm is coming up. And then you can schedule like a week before, 2 weeks before, and break down the content. So rather than doing like chapters 1 to 5 in like one day, I like to do like 2 chapters this day, 2 chapters the next day, because all my exams are usually around the same time. So I'll do like calculus this day, I'll do orgo the next day, and then I'll do my lighter classes other days. And then just fill in with like different assignments so that I'm always kind of keeping my brain going, but I'm also not falling too behind. That way, when the exam comes, you don't feel like you're too overwhelmed. You know, like you've had enough time to sit with the subject information. And that way, when you take the exam, it's not that too difficult and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that
Mhm.
with us. I'm also like such a procrastinator, so that's definitely
Yeah.
something I need to work on. So
Mm.
I'll like try that out for my
That
senior year.
strategy.
Yeah. So, question number 10 is
What advice do you have for succeeding in pre-med like courses?
Mm, definitely, I would say try your best not to fall behind, because for some courses, if you miss like a day or you miss 2 days, 3 days, and the content is just not sitting in your head very well, if you try and just brush it over and then move on to the next one, or try and like skip ahead without understanding the foundations, when it comes towards those exams, you will miss points on those beginning ones. And then towards the end, you'll be like, okay, I understand this more. You answer more questions on the stuff that you do know, but the foundations in which you should have like already understood, it would be more difficult. And then you can't really build up on that. So all the knowledge that you learn on top of that is kind of like weak and creaky. So it's not as easy. But I will say that to definitely succeed more, don't fall behind. Try and just like cement everything down as you go. Go to the office hours, go to those after like course studies where it's like with a group, and then you can kind of just learn more about it. That way, if you have all the information there and it's ready, you'll be fine when the course is over, and then you have like your good grades and everything. And then I will also say that just pre-med in general, try to get involved in a lot that you, as much as you can, to do a little bit of research, do a little bit of like volunteering, do a little bit like extracurriculars that are more personal to you. Because when it comes to like apply to med school, you don't want to just have everything concentrated in one area. You need to show that you are more than just like research or more than just volunteering. It's good to have a bit of everything so that when they see you, they see more of a complete applicant rather than just one person. That's my personal way of seeing it.
awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks for
for
sharing. Our next question is what clinical experiences have you had so far, if any?
Yeah.
Clinical experiences that I've had, this is one that I do quite often back in Baltimore. There's like a homeless shelter that's about an hour away from the school. And what I do usually on like Thursdays and Fridays as my weekly schedule, we go over there, we go as like a little group. And what we do is that we're packaging um like little health packets and then information to help them understand like, oh, these are certain things that you should not be doing. And these are things to kind of like help them in the present if someone is suffering like mentally, or they're having like some kind of drug disorder or anything like that. We make little care packages, and then we also have like group seminars, and then we kind of educate them a little bit more on what to do and like what not to do. And those have turned out to be pretty helpful because some of them we have like it's a whole journey. It's like a year-long, 2-year-long program that I've been involved in. And it's quite interesting to see the progression from once they started until the end. A lot of them end up getting back on their feet, and then they go into like getting some food stamps, and then they just have an easier time readjusting to society. A lot of them go on to complete school, get back into jobs, and it's such a fulfilling process to see happen. That's definitely one of my favorite experiences so far clinically. And then other than that, it's just volunteering and helping the community.
So how do you stay motivated throughout your studies?
It gets a bit disheartening sometimes because I'm sure you guys have had the experience too, where if you study so much and then you see the grade, it's not exactly what you expect. And then you kind of feel discouraged and you don't want to keep doing it. But what I like to do is that I try to challenge myself and think like I can do better than this. I know it might be a little toxic if you think about it for too long, but I try to set an easy goal. So maybe I'm not trying to like shoot exactly for like, oh, I'm gonna get absolutely 100 on the next one. I'd rather say like, okay, I need to just at least get maybe 20 points more than this one. I try and just build up because if you keep trying to shoot for exactly like 100 each time, it might be difficult to get there. And then each time that you don't get it, you'll get discouraged. So just focus on having an upward trend. And if you do that, it gets easier because you'll get to a point where your average is much more higher than what it was before, and then you feel more comfortable and confident to reach higher. And then simple motivations is just like trying to remember why you wanted to do this and try not to like get too distracted by other things. Because I know personally I've had this moment where I know that I want to be pre-med and like I want to reach something in medicine. But when things get challenging in the course, I start thinking of like, oh, I can just do some other career that doesn't require like med school and all that. But if you think of that for too long, you kind of like get lost. So try and just stay true to like what you're thinking and then what you originally wanted to do. Because if you just stay with that, then you can pretty much achieve whatever you want.
So how do you think you got into Johns Hopkins? Like, what was the biggest factor that played a role in your admission, would you say?
Mm. I would say definitely like it was slightly not as easy because when I applied, they didn't have like SATs. So I did test optional. But other than that, I did like my grades and everything, they were all good. My GPA was like a 3.9. Weighted was like a 4.7. So that was like definitely stats were a big part of it. But I will say that the way I wrote my way into it, I tried to really showcase like who I was other than like just the stats. Because if I were to compare myself to every other applicant at the school, if it were just on paper, everyone would have the same GPA, everyone would have the same extracurriculars. And I was like, but what really makes you special? And that's kind of like what I was trying to write in my college application. In the essays, I try to not talk about anything academically. That's what I was doing. I tried to just show them a piece of my personality and why I would fit into their school. So, for example, Hopkins is very community based. They love doing things like all around the school. We have concerts, we have all kinds of like little events. Students all get together, go into the city, we go into the harbor, we do all kinds of things. And I tried to show that I am a huge people person in my essay. I was talking about everything I was involved with in high school, how it made me feel, how it helped the community there, and then also just why I chose to do all those things. For example, in high school, I did volunteering, I did research, I also did honor society on campus. So I talked about why I wanted to do those and who I was. Just really try to separate yourself from academics is what I was doing in the essay. And I think that's why I was able to get in because they can look past the stats and then see what does this person have to offer.
Thanks for sharing. So
Mhm.
it looks like we have like 5 minutes left and we're like cutting short. So we'll just jump into like the last question. And then if you guys have any questions in the chat, then please ask and we'll try
We'll
to
go
answer
over
them.
those.
So the last question is, what advice do you have for an incoming senior or just like high school students interested in getting into a top school?
Like Johns Hopkins.
I would say definitely as you're coming into senior year, just remember that this is your last year of high school. Try to do as many things as you can because you won't get this time back. And it's definitely something that you should think about a lot. I would say also it doesn't mean like in any sense that you should just relax and like chill on classes and all that because college applications are still happening. So try your best to just push through your courses. You're on the last stretch, and then after that, You'll be done with high school and then you can look forward to college and then all the new experiences that you'll be able to get into. But as you're coming into senior year, just remember to try and just stay motivated. It's the last stretch. You just go through your courses, finish off strong, and then try and get into things that you're interested in doing. For example, if there was like an art club you wanted to join, try doing that. If there's a sport you want to join, do it. Because you may not get the time like later on in college because things get really busy really fast. And as for college applications, just make sure that you're just being as honest as you can on there. Make sure that I know a lot of people state that you have to have like a little brag sheet or something like that to really showcase yourself. And I would recommend like doing that just to make sure that you can empower yourself, be confident on paper, and that way colleges can see why you were special and why they deserve you at their college.
Okay, thank you for sharing. I think we have one question in the chat. Says, what's the pathway for pre-med coming from high school? How do we decide what subjects to pick in college, and focus on that?
That's a good question. I'll say that the pathway for pre-med, honestly, it's quite easy. It's quite straightforward. There are specific classes that you need to take to get into med school. I believe you can find it on the AMCAS website, which is just the medical students website. It would require just the foundation classes, so like calculus 1, 2, intro chemistry, intro biology, organic chemistry, physics, and then prop stats. Those on the top of my head are like the base classes for pre-med. Once you've completed those, you're pretty much good with your pre-med requirements. And then from there on, you just need to focus on your own major. For example, some of my friends, they're English majors and they're still pre-med. So it doesn't specifically matter, like it doesn't matter to have a STEM major. You just need to make sure you take those pre-med classes. Because when you apply to med school, there's this thing called like a pre-med GPA or a STEM GA where they calculate your STEM classes or the classes that are required for pre-med. And that's what they factor into your admissions rather than just like overall. So if you're an English major or a film major or anything like that, you can still pursue those and be pre-med. So if you're trying to pick what to focus on in college, I would definitely say try your best to do as well as you can in the STEM courses and the ones that are required for pre-med. And then other than that, you can focus on what you want to do for your major. Like I'm doing stuff for like neuroscience, cognitive sciences with like a minor in psychology. So that's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of my years because I already completed most of my pre-med requirements for freshman and sophomore year.
Okay, thanks for
And also
sharing.
like the help from academic advisors to pick like what to focus on.
Another question I have is regarding the MCAT.
Mhm.
So is that like, do you prepare for that in like undergrad, or like would you take it your senior year of undergrad, or like I've heard people take it also like sophomore or junior year just to prepare, like just to get ahead. So like what is your opinion on that, and like how have you been preparing for that?
Honestly, it depends because the pre-med journey, there isn't like a strict timeline for when you have to apply. I know some people that are applying to med school 3 years after they've already graduated college. So you can take your time on it as long as like you feel like you're prepared with your application and it's strong enough to put forward because admissions for med school are very difficult and strict. But I would say that you should definitely start studying for MCATs while in undergrad. Personally, my friend, she was studying for her MCATs and she took it her junior year as she was going into senior year. She didn't get the score she quite expected, so she's taking a break from it for now, and then she's going to spend senior year just studying, and she plans to take it again after senior year. For me, she gave me her MCAT books to study, so that's what I'm going to be doing junior year. I'm going to spend junior year studying for it, probably senior year as well, because I want to make sure that when I do apply, I put in my strongest application. Because med school, it's weird. They have this thing where if you don't get in the first time and you try and apply your marks as a reapplicant, and if your application did not improve from the first time you applied, it may dock you some points in a way. So that's why if you're applying first off, try and make it as strong as you can, and then take the time that you need to really study for the MCAT.
Okay, thank you for that. It looks like we're like less than a minute until the
Already
session ends. So before we go, if you guys have any questions or need further information, just feel free to just like DM us on Instagram, email us, follow us on our social media.